Okay, this is a review of the Tokyo Marui Uzi, or Marui, whatever you say. I say Marui. Right. The Uzi is something which is going to turn heads because it's not particularly common. Most people won't have seen one at their local field. The only other one that I know of are going to be either cheap softs, stuff like Well for instance, or the Crossman version. Now that has got CO2 power, and frankly the stock is all wrong. Everything just looks a bit, it only does semi-automatic, so really if you want a decent high quality replication of an Uzi 9mm Israeli submachine gun, this is your only actual logical route. So, well, what more can I say? It's a Tokyo Marui and they are reliable, so we know that's a good thing. The gearbox used is an EG1000R. Now the R denotes that it is actually reversed, so the piston strokes are coming towards you. Which, by the way, great. If anyone's fired a Tokyo Marui, I think it's the AK-47, the AKS-47 in fact, the folding stock version, you'll be able to feel the piston strokes moving around. It will jolt in your hand. This is much the same. It will jolt in your hand. Now, it's not really a recoil as such, but it's definitely going to add an interesting element to firing it, and it makes it feel a little bit, it makes it feel a little bit more fun. It's an entertaining gun. The sling points on the weapon, very strong, and there's one on there on the stock. I don't bother using a sling, because I don't see the point. It's so small anyway. When you're using the Uzi, it is literally just a case of, it's tiny, and you can nip round a corner with it, and just, bah. Okay? Construction is very solid. Metal, ABS, okay, this portion here. The stock is metal, the foregrip ABS, the entire front assembly and barrel here, okay, they're metal, they're very high quality. It's also worth noting it's got a grip safety similar to a 1911, which is metal. Mag release catches, metal, trigger guard ABS, okay. The magazine supplied with the weapon is a Midcap and holds around 40 rounds. It's basically modelled on the Real Steel's 25 round mag. What you can get in addition to these is the longer 32 rounder, which is basically modelled on the 32 round mag that you'd get with the real thing. This one holds 220, so similar to an MP5 magazine. Now the reason I got the MP5 out is simply as a comparison. In size, the Uzi is about half a length. Okay? Now if you're used to Thompson magazines or MP40 mags, this is a Thompson magazine. Okay, size wise you can tell you're going to have no trouble even with a high cap putting it in a vest. You can use pistol pouches or MP5 pouches if you're going to be carrying, okay, so load bearing devices. You really want any tack vest which can take a 9mm MP5 mag, one of the 20 or 30 round mags out there. Really, a compact weapon which is well made. Okay. Selector switch has got AR and S written on it. Automatic, single, which is the R, and then S for safe. Trademarks on the gun. SMG, it says UZ, it doesn't say I. 9mm Japan and Marui, which are at the back there. You flip it over and turn it around. Tokyo Marui Co. Limited, made in Japan. You got a serial number, in my case 097628. And there you have ASGK logo. Grip safety operates much the same as a 1911 and is made of metal. It's good quality metal. The spring has got a fair amount of tension, but it's not going to cause any discomfort. The weapon overall is very compact and is suited to a CQB role. The stock unfolds like the real thing. Okay, simply pull down and out, and it locks. It's rigid, there is no play. It's a very strong, decent stock. It will support you if you want to aim down the sights. The iron sights are the standard Uzi iron sights that you would find on the real thing. Okay, it's realistic. Small hole here with a 200 note marker, and you flip up and you get 100. Okay, I keep on 200 because I prefer that sight aperture there. It's a slightly wider one on the 100. The 200 one I feel is nicer. To be fair though, it is an Uzi and you're not really going to be using the sights too much. The cocking handle on top here does move, but not when there's a battery in. Mine's got a battery in there at the moment, so I'm just going to dry fire it so you can get an appreciation of the noise. The selector is metal and locks nicely. R, okay. Single shot. Now you've got automatic here. It's worth noting I'm using a 1600 mAh battery. It's an 8.4 volt and it's an intellect. Okay. As you can tell, it jumps about a little bit. Nothing too much. It's interesting. Okay, it's unique, and that's why I like it. The front end is detachable. It's not threaded for 14mm, but supplied in the box is an adapter for the old style Marui trace unit. That's the old one only, not the new one. So if you've got the new one, you're going to need to get the, I think it's KM make one? KM adapter for 14mm. Now to put the stock away, what I usually do, put the muzzle on the ground, on the floor, and just basically this side of the stock here, and to just push it in like that, and then it pushes out forward like that, and there's a button on the side here, just like that. This is the real thing. Give it a push, give it a push. Locked in there nice and securely. To get to the battery, you pull back on this tab here, and then you pull the cover out. And then you get to about that angle there and it comes out. Now, the cover itself is made of metal and has a very simple spring system here. Okay? Very simple, which operates the form of resistance for this charging handle here. So no worries about that breaking, and if you lose a spring, well, it's very simple to get a replacement. You could make one from any old spring. Worth noting, you can't do anything with a charging handle when there's a battery inside because you don't have room. Now, it uses AK style Type 05 stick battery. It's a very tight fit in there. Okay? With battery and a loaded magazine in the weapon, you're looking at about 2.5 kilograms. It's a fair weight. Okay? It's nice, nicely weighted. It's a well balanced design. Now, a lot of people complain about the ergonomics because it's not quite the same as an MP5 or an M4, for instance. It's much more angular, it's much squarer, it's more of an uncompromising sort of build style, really. It's interesting, it's sort of new. And to put it back, you just wedge that bit in there, line it up, okay, and then just do that. Give it a slap. And it clips back in. If I hold on to the sling mount, really not very much flex on the gun. There's no creaking plastic. Okay, the ABS is solid. Nothing on it's going to give. Hicaps hold 220 and they protrude out the bottom of the gun. Like so. They wind, same as any old MP5 hicap would do. And the standard midcaps, much smaller. Skirmishability and performance. Using my 8.4 volt intellect battery, 1600 mAh, I can get an entire day of CQB on single shot. On automatic, I quite happily do half a day of woodland before I need to change over the battery. It is worth noting you do need a very specific kind of battery to do this. The gun performs very well. Groupings at 30 meters exactly can hit a torso, okay? It's a 2-foot groupings, sub 2-foot groupings every time on automatic or on single, okay? Rate of fire is nice and high, you're looking at about close to 800 RPM, I would say. And the range with its 265 FPS is about, give or take, 40 meters max range. The hop-up unit does its job very well. The hop rubber is of course the trademark Tokyo Marui hop-up unit. Now, it's just great. That hop rubber is so consistent. The shot accuracy is lovely. It glides through the air with a relatively low FPS and it just hits the target perfectly. It floats onto it. The hop-up can be found under the top, okay? Under the top receiver, you'll see it right there. Hop. It's about 3/4 of the way up on 20s. Not particularly effective. You get a hard hop rubber. Maybe a Firefly hop rubber would fit this. I don't know. and wedge that in there if you really want to improve range, and maybe get a Type bore barrel, as the barrel itself only runs up to about here, and I'm not sure as to its stock diameter, but I would assume it to be, and this is just, you know, don't quote me on this, I would assume it's a 6.05 mil, but I'm not really sure. Now, performance wise and upgrades, performance satisfactory for a gun of this size. CQB, it is brilliant. For woodland, I'm going to stick with my MP5 for woodland. But it is worth noting that it can be the same length as an MP5, or it can be one heck of a lot smaller, it can be half the size. So, you know, it just depends what you're looking for. For roll and CQB, you're really going to be very hard pressed to find anything better than this. If you want something like this, it's perfect for it. Near pistol size, much more capacity, quite able to take, you know, 220 round magazine. And it's built wonderfully, and it's very reliable. Now an EG1000R gearbox, parts not going to be too hard to find, and it's got this lovely unique moves around. It's interesting, it's lovely, it's rare, and it's classic. If you really want an Uzi, this is the only one to get. Honestly, I recommend it 100%. I give it a 10 out of 10. It's by far one of the best Uzi replicas available. I say probably the best on the market. I don't really think there's anything else in airsoft which compares or comes even close to it. If you're thinking about getting something interesting as a primary or as a sidearm, because you can sling it, don't forget, as a sniper weapon, as a backup for a sniper, very useful. It's much more use than a Mach 11, it's much more use than a pistol. So if you want to consider this for CQB, perfect. For woodland, like I say, Type bore, brand new hot rubber, maybe a harder hot rubber and some 25s, you're away. I wouldn't bother changing the spring. The shim job is perfect, and it can run quite happily on a 7.2 volt NIM battery. There's really not much to say on it. I give it a 10 out of 10. The only thing that you could say, which is just being picky, the only small gripe, if you've got large hands, you're not going to find the trigger guard very comfortable. But that is entirely a personal thing, and my hands are thin anyway, so, you know, literally a 10 out of 10 gun. I can't flaw. There's no faults in the gun. I cannot be happy with it. It's fantastic, and I completely recommend it to anyone. It's one of those very few guns that come along once in a while into my collection, and I say, wow, I'm happy with this. It's interesting. It ticks all the boxes, and the performance is brilliant. Okay, a range sub-2 for groupings on a weapon this size at 30 meters. Speaks for itself. The results are great, and I suggest that anyone out there who wants one, go and get one. You're not going to be disappointed by it. It's an interesting, really nice, really well made gun. It's quality, and it's going to last you, and it's really good for the price. Having said that, also, it's actually, you know, a bit more expensive than quite a few MP5s out there. But for what it is, would you rather have this or an MP5? Join the MP5 crowd, or be an individual and get an Uzi? I'll leave that to you, it's personal preference. I've got both, and I have to say, if I had to choose between them, I would actually, quite honestly, I would choose the Uzi, just because of what it is, and I think it's fantastic. Thank you for watching.